Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Salim Hassani and I'm your host once again for this program, From Birth Until Death. In the previous episodes we've been looking at death in particular, and we've covered the washing of the body and the shrouding, and now we're going to look at in depth about the actual burial itself. We're delighted to have with us once again Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you today, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah, very good. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fiqh. Sheikh, we want to just talk about the actual burial process itself. Where do we begin?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Again, I would like to emphasize that we are not speaking about the details of every of each step. We are just giving the overall description.
Yes.
Now, we finished the washing of the body and then the shroud.
Yes.
And then the body has to be processed or moved directly to the graveyard.
Yes.
First of all, the Prophet ﷺ, according to Hadith Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to process the janazah quickly. And he said, "Asri'u bil janazah," haste in processing the janazah. The Prophet ﷺ said, if it is a good janazah, the janazah itself will say, "Oh, take me quickly to my destination."
Yes.
And also, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the janazah is bad, of course the translation of the meaning of what he said, if the janazah is bad, you will get rid of it.
If it's a bad person.
Is a bad person.
Okay.
I'm saying this, why? Because many people say that let us delay the janazah in order for us to call the other relatives or for other people to come. If it is a minor delay that is not considered, then it's all right. Otherwise, no. The sunnah is to process the janazah quickly into its final destination.
I mean, especially in the UK, we often hear of cases where they want to move the body from one place, maybe to Pakistan or India or something like that.
As you mentioned this, Dr. Salim, Jazakallah khair, this is a very important point. I was delivering a course related to janazah in the UK recently, and the brothers told me that it might cost the relatives a lot of money to process the janazah and to move the body to Pakistan or to move it to the homeland. And it's a lot of money. If that is the case, it should not be done. Alhamdulillah, in the UK or in many European countries, they have graveyards for Muslims.
Yes.
So if they have graveyards for Muslims, or at least a section that can be used for Muslims, then people should, or Muslims should, process the janazah as quick as possible.
Okay.
So they should move the janazah directly to the graveyard. As we said, that if the graveyard is dedicated for Muslims, alhamdulillah.
Yes.
If it is not for Muslims, then there should be a section, separate sections for Muslims, at least separate section. There should be like a path between them, or fence or something like this.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be known that this is the graveyard of Muslims and this is the graveyard for non-Muslims, without getting into the details.
Yes.
Then we take the janazah to the grave. Then we put the janazah in the grave. Now, you know, in the UK or some countries, it is not allowed to remove the coffin and to bury the janazah without the box, the wooden coffin. If we can avoid this, that is better, definitely, without the coffin, the wooden box. If we can't, then what can we do?
Yes.
Okay, this is the first thing. The second thing, the grave should be towards the Qibla.
Okay.
And this what identifies the graves of Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ said about the Qibla, قِبْلَتُكُمْ أَحْيَاء وَأَمْوَاتٍ. It is your Qibla when you are alive and when you are dead.
Yes.
Also, the graves should be deep enough in order for the body to be buried and covered completely in a way that it will not be what you call taken out by wild animals or
exposed
so, or exposed. Okay, it should be little bit deep.
Sure.
Okay, of course there are some details about how deep should the grave should be. And then when we bury the body itself, the people who should bury the body are the relatives of the deceased. As we said, the male close relatives.
Yes.
If the body belongs to a female, then it is allowed for it is better for the female relatives to bury the body. If they are mahram, whether they are mahram or they are not mahram.
Okay.
If mahram to bury the female, then that is better, of course. But if there is no mahram, then it can be buried by non-mahrams.
Okay.
And then they put the body inside the grave.
Yes.
Of course, the lahd is better. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-lahdu lana wa-shaqqu li-ghayrina." Lahd is to have a small trench inside the grave, whereby the body of the deceased will be put on the right side, facing the qibla. So this is the lahd.
Okay.
The shaq, the body will be put on the back.
All right. Okay.
Okay, and the face will be towards the sky. Of course, the sunnah is the lahd.
Okay.
And this is the opinion of most of the scholars. And the Prophet ﷺ was buried in this way, the lahd.
The lahd. Okay.
So once they put the body inside the grave, lahd, they can untie the strings. They should untie the strings. And then they put blocks that is from dry mud, if possible. If not possible, from any other material. But the best material is blocks from dry mud.
Okay.
And they should put it, and then after that they should pour the sand and soil above that in order to cover the grave.
Okay.
And then when they cover the grave,
yes,
with sand and soil, they can, or they should make the grave little bit high, as high as one span.
One hand span.
One hand span, or up to dhira',
Okay.
maximum.
Okay.
Some scholars said even up to dhira' should not be.
Okay.
Okay, but definitely not more than that.
Right.
And if they can put pebbles over that, that is better.
Okay.
And to make it as a shape of a sanam al-ba'ir.
Okay.
What is it?
The hump of the camel.
The hump of the camel.
Yes.
Why? They said if the water rains, if it rains, then the water will go on the sides and it will not penetrate into the grave.
Okay.
And they can put one stone to make a sign for the grave.
Okay.
2 stones, that is okay.
Okay.
However, there should be no building. There should be no building over the grave. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited this. Now, also the Prophet ﷺ in one narration prohibited kitabah.
Okay. So the writing of an
writing over the grave.
Right.
However, some scholars said that what was meant by the Prophet ﷺ is not writing in general, but writing things that might consider to be na'i, mourning,
Okay.
or describing the deceased as a great person,
Right.
or describing the loss, etc.
Okay.
But to write the name of the deceased, that is all right,
That's
according to some scholars.
Okay.
However, if we say that if you can avoid writing over the grave, that would be better.
All right.
If in some customs, okay, they have to identify the grave, although we don't believe that it is needed, then that is all right.
Okay. And you mentioned not building very high on top of the grave. I mean,
Not building at all.
Not building at all.
No buildings.
No building at all. I mean, sometimes, especially within the UK, in some communities, we find gates that have been built around.
This is wrong.
This is completely
This
wrong.
is wrong.
Okay.
The graves should be very, very simple.
Right. Okay.
And first of all, it is a waste of money. Most importantly, when the Prophet ﷺ was on his deathbed, he prohibited us from glorifying those graves.
Right.
By what? By praying next to them. Okay?
Yes.
And also the Prophet ﷺ sent Ali bin Abi Talib to what? To go to find any grave that is high,
yes,
and to make it even.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Hadith Abil Hayyaj al-Asadi.
Okay.
So, and the Prophet ﷺ said, don't make my qabr as a Eid,
Okay.
as a place for celebration.
Okay.
And the Prophet ﷺ prohibited prayer next to in the graveyard.
Yes.
Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ does not want us to glorify the grave or to give it any special status.
Right.
Even if it is a grave of the most righteous person,
Okay.
including the Prophet ﷺ himself. He said, don't make my qabr as a place of celebration.
Yes.
And that's why the Prophet ﷺ was buried in the hujra of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, in the room of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, and he was buried in a very simple way. Nothing was built on his grave, no dome, nothing.
Yes.
Very simple sand covered his grave,
Yes.
and that's it.
Okay.
Same thing, Abu Bakr was buried, Umar ibn al-Khattab was buried as well,
Yes.
in a very simple way, and that was the habit of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, the second generation and the third generation. Unfortunately, it has been recently, or after that,
Okay.
when people started to put so many things over the graves in order to identify those graves for righteous people or
Yes.
pious people or saints, as they say, which is wrong.
Okay. Jazakallah khair for this information, or explaining this very clearly to us. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this topic. وجزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome back after the break. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Before the break, we were talking about the burial process, and we went through the general guidelines, and due to constraints of time, we're now going to move on to the next topic, a very important topic, which is the inheritance itself. Now, what do we mean by inheritance?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. It is the rahmah of Allah Jalla wa ala that He does not want to separate between the people who die and the people who are still alive.
Okay.
And it is the rahmah of Allah Jalla wa ala that Allah Jalla wa ala wants us to maintain the ties of kinship. And Allah Jalla wa ala wants to be just with the deceased and with the people who are still alive. So Allah Jalla wa ala divided the legacy or the assets of the deceased among the people who are still living,
Okay.
who are related to him or to her.
Yes.
So the inheritance law in Islam is a very, you can say it is a miracle from Allah Jalla wa ala, because the one who studies that carefully will see those miracles, and he will see how Allah Jalla wa ala made that distribution.
Yes.
And so the inheritance in general, what we mean by that, we mean how the assets of the deceased are distributed.
Yes.
This is the general meaning of inheritance or inheritance law from an Islamic perspective.
Okay. So it's how the assets are divided. Now, say for example, one is to have passed away, someone you know, a family or relative. How do they then go about dividing, how much assets go to which person?
Okay. See, just before that, if you allow me, we have to understand that this is a very noble knowledge, noble science. And the Prophet ﷺ said, تَعَلَّمُوا الْفَرَائِض, learn the inheritance law.
Yes.
And he said that it is half of the ilm. And also the Prophet ﷺ said in the same hadith that it will be the first thing to be taken out from people.
Okay.
Why? They said that because it is little bit difficult, it's not that difficult. Moreover, people will think that it is not useful, so they will leave it.
Yes.
So the fact that they will leave it immediately, because they think that it is not useful or they do not need it on a daily basis.
Yes.
Unlike tahara or unlike salah.
Yes.
So that's why keeping that knowledge, or at least having some people to know about it,
Yes.
means that we are preserving Sharia in its totality.
Yes.
And not neglecting any part of it.
Yes.
Moreover, because this is related to the distribution of assets and little bit sensitive, so some people might be tested and might not be happy with what Allah Jalla wa Ala has given them. So they might abandon it. And unfortunately, and I have to make this clear in front of everyone, I have received, or I have been receiving, so many questions from brothers and sisters who say that can I distribute my assets
Yes.
in a way that is different from Sharia? And it is a very common question for example, a parent, a father or a mother to say, Sheikh, my son was disobedient to me.
Yes.
My son was disobedient to me. I don't want him to inherit anything from me. And also we received so many cases where a person says, my father or my mother passed away, and my father or the other person who was living, the other member who was living, took everything. And he did not allow me to take my right.
Yes.
And I remember one time we had to write to a sister. She is a mother of a child. Her husband died and left her and her child.
Yes.
And the husband gave everything to his wife.
Okay.
By law in the UK, and I guess in most of the European countries as well as non-Muslim countries,
Yes.
the wife takes, I think, most of the assets.
Yes.
So the wife took everything and left her son with nothing. And then his son, their son, started to know more about Islam, and he knew that he has rights over the assets of his father,
Yes.
who passed away a few years ago. He went to his mother and he said to her, she said, no, you have no right over everything. And she said, we as Muslims, and this is even what she told us once we wrote to her,
Yes.
to fear Allah Jalla wa Ala, and we told her that she has to be careful, because whatever she has taken, as if she has stolen it, if it is not,
yes.
if it is beyond her share,
Yes.
then it is not allowed for her to take it, and it is considered to be what?
Stealing.
Haram, ghasb, as if she has stolen it.
Okay.
I would like to make this point clear to all our viewers,
Yes.
because they think, as this sister said, that we have to follow the law of the land. And the law of the land says that the wife has rights over the legacy or the assets of the husband.
Yes.
So she said, it is my right. We told her, this is wrong. We told you about it, and it is up to you to
Yes.
follow it or not. So I would like to warn all our brothers and sisters
Yes.
not to do this. We have some other cases where in some communities they think that married daughters, please brothers and sisters, listen to this, they think that married daughters have no rights over the assets.
Yes.
And this is wrong, because they say that, in fact, before I come here, there was a sister who was arguing with me, the mother, and she said her daughters were rich because their husbands are rich, and she said that even they got married and they left us, whatever, etc., etc., and she said, we don't want to give them anything. We said, it is not yours.
Yes.
And as the scholars, all of them said, that Allah is the one who divided what? the mawarith, the assets
Yes.
of the deceased. إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَعْطَى كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. This is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah gave everyone his own right.
Yes.
So it is not for us to interfere in what Allah decided. And that's why most of the rulings related to inheritance law are what? Mentioned in the Quran, directly or indirectly, not to leave a room for any dispute.
Yes.
I hope our brothers and sisters are listening to this and taking it seriously.
Yes. I'm sure our viewers are paying particular attention to this point. Another a common scenario, you mentioned a couple of scenarios, there is someone may want to divide their assets before death itself has taken place.
Yes, yes. Jazakallah khair. This is another common scenario. Some people say that we don't know when we are going to die, and the law of the land compels us to distribute the assets according to the law, not according to Sharia. So let us distribute the assets now.
Yes.
We have to say something. First of all, in the UK, for example, if you write in your will that the assets have to be distributed according to Islam, then they must distribute it according to Islam. They must distribute it according to Sharia.
Yes.
It is binding.
Yes.
The bequest or the will is binding. I don't know if it is the case in other countries. But as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, we have to take all measures that make sure what? That the assets are distributed according to Sharia. Either by writing this in a will, or going to a solicitor, or taking other steps in order to make sure that the assets are distributed according to Sharia.
Okay.
So this is something that to be mentioned. Now, if a person said that we cannot do this except by gifting it to the children, we say that there are two things. Whatever the person gives it during his life is not considered to be according to the inheritance law of Islam.
Right.
It is a gift.
Okay. Doesn't count as inheritance.
Doesn't count as inheritance.
Okay.
It is a gift. But if the person wrote in his will that I want my assets to be distributed according to Sharia after my death, so if it is going to be executed after the death, then it is the inheritance law, the Islamic inheritance law.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But if the money were to be distributed before the death, then it is not according to the Islamic inheritance law. It is just a gift.
Okay.
And it has separate rulings. Generally speaking, I don't know how much time we have.
We've still got another couple of minutes before we go to the break.
Generally speaking, the gift is the right of the person.
Okay.
So, and if I am living and I want to gift this to you, it is my right to give it to you.
Okay.
Once you take it, it is your right.
Yes.
However, among my children in particular, the Prophet ﷺ said, اتقوا الله وأعدلوا بين أولادكم. And when Al-Aqra ibn Habis came to the Prophet ﷺ, one of the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said that he gave one of his children a piece of land. The Prophet ﷺ asked him, have you given all your children like this? So he said no. Then the Prophet ﷺ said no.
Okay.
What does that mean? If as a father I have let me say that I have 2 daughters, 2 sons.
Yes.
If I give my son something as a gift, aside from or apart from the basic maintenance.
Yes.
The basic maintenance is something else.
Yes.
The basic maintenance, maybe the old son needs something that the young son does not need.
Yes.
The female might need something that the male does not need it.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the maintenance.
Yes.
Okay, in order to make it clear for our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
There is the maintenance, we should put it aside, and there is the gifts.
Gifts. Jazakallah khair for the Sheikh. We're sorry to leave you hanging at home, but we're going to end the episode now. Please join us for the next episode. We're going to be discussing the inheritance matter further. Wa jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.